Hi, everybody. Senior Scientist here. Say, I do a lot of posts. I don't know if you ever check that out on YouTube. And I just made this one. And I want to, first off, be aware that everything on here is the opposite. Because when we look at the inverse price chart of Bitcoin Cash, it should be painfully obvious what's going on. I mean, that's why I'm on here doing these videos right now. And just kind of letting people know, I mean, I don't care what you do, sell, buy. Again, it doesn't matter because we don't move the market, right? We're trying to determine what the big players do. Again, even if you have $100 million, you're not moving the market. So do whatever you want, but I kind of make these videos to get out there for, the little people. I like Wyckoff. He spent his life educating retail investors because he noticed patterns that were based on supply and demand. And so anyway, check out the inverse chart here at Bitcoin Cash. All right. Doesn't that look like it's about ready to fall off the cliff? In other words, if you saw this chart, let's just say it was a normal chart and it wasn't the inverse. It's so bearish, it's not even funny. This thing's getting ready to drop like a rock. So it's almost as if people are, they almost prefer fear, like they're motivated by fear. You know, there's the fear of missing out when it goes up, and they buy when it's pumping. And then when it's dropping, they have FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And they sell. So it's always motivated by fear. So what I want to say is that you need to test the emotions, right? Biblically, if you want to get into that, Bible says to test the spirits. So I think that's like kind of like, what are you feeling? You know what I mean? And again, I always go back to the Bible because I love the Bible. But it says in there, whether you believe it or not, it's good advice. God is, he is not the spirit of fear. So when you feel fear, recognize that and do the opposite or something, you know what I mean? Or stop and just know that it's not the truth. That's what I gained from that. Anyway, so we see that chart right there. Look at Wyckoff distribution. Okay, so in other words, if this chart were just normal chart and it wasn't like inverse, we have everything on here. And so the chart would start, see that first drop there at the beginning? That would be your, let's see here. That would be, let me do this right. Okay, yeah, that would be your automatic rally. So the AR at the beginning there, you see how you have the BC and the AR. That's where I see this chart starting there. And that drop would be your automatic rally. Again, this is where if, like, let's say this was a normal chart, and we will see this at some point. This is where all the money makers who have been accumulating through the accumulation phase, which would have happened prior to this is where you would see this pattern. And Wyckoff says this is where they're offloading. And they do all these different tests and stuff through these regions. And so you have the AR, then it comes up to the ST. And sorry, I don't know how to draw on my phone here. I got an iPhone. I don't even know how to work the thing. So I wish I could go back to my Android. But, or just do it on the desktop. Anyway, I'm just sitting outside on the porch and thought I'd make that. So anyway, so we got the AR, and then it goes up to that ST. I would say that is that first peak. Oops, sorry. I know it's annoying if you're watching. That's kind of that first peak with that dotted line above it. So you got the biggest drop there, and then it kind of goes up, and then it drops again, and it goes up to that next peak, which is the highest peak. All right, that would be your UT in phase B. See how it goes above all the things? So we would see that we're like, okay, maybe we're in distribution right now. But then you would have this this last I can't remember what the acronym is for, LPSY, and you see how it's kind of choppy through there. That's again, big players are just offloading on retailers, and retailers are buying because they think the thing is going to keep going up, 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 up. Again, everything is opposite. Okay. So we would see, there it is, that LPSY, choppy, choppy, choppy. They're selling. But in our case, they're buying because it's the inverse. Ha ha ha. Now, but if this weren't the inverse, that's where they're selling. Retail buyers are buying, they're buying the top of the market. And you hear stories about this where people mortgage their houses because they have so much emotion of fear of missing out embedded in this. People think it's a sure thing. This thing's going to keep going up. It's going to go to $1 million. That's where they're offloading. Now, they keep coming through, and you have that phase C, and then it goes into phase D. All right. And that's where we're in right now. We did that LPSY, so it comes below that previous region there where they're offloading, and it goes below that. Look at this. So it dropped below that. We got that. So we had the highest peak there. Then we have that next LPSY, and then it drops below that one, right? And that's the last point. And then everybody loses everything. And the person who mortgaged their house, their value already dropped, but now they're wrecked. And it goes so fast. So we have dropped below that SOW. I think that's a sign of weakness on a distribution cycle. And it gets below where that it goes below. You see that UT in phase B, and it comes and drops down. It gets below that, right? That's this drop right there. And we're heading there right now. And that's where I think by the end of the week, I made that bold prediction that we'd be around $1,700. Because again, this is inverse. We're going to drop on the inverse, meaning we're going to pump majorly. Listen, if we don't, we're going to paint a bunch of, we're doing opposite. If it doesn't drop here and get below that middle peak there, that drop, the bottom, if it doesn't get below, then are we still on? I don't know. Am I still on here? Yeah, I am. Okay, cool. Yeah, if we don't get below that middle drop, which is our middle peak of recent, that's at 600 roughly. If we don't do that by 7 p.m. here Sunday, and this was on the inverse, we would paint a lot of bullish divergence. But in our case, it would be bearish. And instead of going down on the inverse, it would go up. But we don't go up. Because look, we're in phase D, and we're going to see that sign of weakness. But friends, that sign of weakness, that's where I told you by the end of the month, before the end of the month, probably within a couple weeks, it's going to go fast. I think we'll be around that $3,000 mark and chop around from $3,000 to $1,500. I think that's our sign of weakness. And we're going to do that for probably a month or so. September, maybe into October. And then whenever it's done showing the sign of weakness, that SOW, again, that's from 3,000 to 1,500. Chop through there. Then the big drop happens where you go all the way down into the very, 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 very bottom of the bear market on a distribution cycle. In our case, that would be phase E. That's what wrecks everyone. In our case, it is not phase E. It is phase E, but it's actually in the accumulation. In other words, Wyckoff says on the flip of this, that last phase E, if you were to inverse it in a bull cycle, that's where the real wealth is built. So I hope this gives a different perspective to kind of see what's going on. Don't you think it's pretty obvious? I do. I mean, I don't know how you could get any more obvious than this. Yet you have so many people out here spreading fear, and I think that they're paid shills. I mean, it's so weird how they say the same things and stuff. Really weird what's going on. So crypto's here to stay. We don't have a say in it. The big people, the globalists, if you will, they've already decided. They've already built out the infrastructure. It's all here. And look, as much as I like that the fact that we're going to make a ton of money, this is going to enslave all of us. If you know what's really going on with carbon credits coming, I mean, they're already here. So the organizations are already here. They're already running. People can, if you have a lot of land, you can go and submit, have the government pay you money. If you have a lot of trees on your property, let's say you have 1,000 acres and you have a lot of trees on your property, the government will now pay you because you are a carbon sink. Now, you're not really going to collect much of that money. It's going to be gobbled up by these contractors coming in. There's so much. This is all like right now happening in the U.S. Why do you think Bill Gates is like the biggest landowner? They knew all this is happening. They're going to take everything, digitize everything. All the bills being passed, they've already been passed by Trump, includes digitizing our entire bodies, DNA, everything. Everything's going to be having to be verified. So there's going to be a time, though, here for over the next few months where everybody is going to be rejoicing like crazy because you're going to be so wealthy here coming up. All right. But I just want you to be aware that the Bible does speak of this. And the Bible says that at the very end, people will be eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage, and that the very last part of the church and everything, the church is going to fail, which is already has. The ecumenical churches and stuff, they're just wacko. They're not following Scripture, but it says that if you look at the Laodicea, that's the last church in Revelation chapter 4, and it's a prophetic timeline of church history, those 7 letters of the 7 churches. If you go through the actual meaning of the Greek words, it lines up perfectly with church history. Now, over the last 2,000 years. I say this because the last church, Laodicea, Jesus warns them, you say you are rich and you have need of nothing. And that, you don't want to like put too much of your own interpretation into it. But I see that in a lot of the churches here that are very wealthy things, and people are like, oh yeah, God blesses me with wealth. Wealth can be a curse. What about the poor people? They don't get blessed. Wealth is not, God's not concerned about money, dude. All right? He wants your soul. He wants you to know how much he loves you. And that if you believe in him, exactly where you are, despite anything you've ever done or will do or anything, it's about him and belief in him. If he could have made it any easier, he would have. All right? Peace.